For over a century, Anglo-Americans have portrayed Mexican Americans as foreigners, dangerous, lazy, dirty, and a nuisance. The reality is that Anglo-Americans began using derogatory language and images to make it easy to discriminate and take away the rights of the Mexican American people, who were part of the American Southwest even before the pioneers migrated west. Parts of the United States, like California, Nevada, parts of Utah, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado belong to Mexico. Therefore, to dispose Mexicans of their land, Anglo-Americans passed laws and used the courts to take away their property rights. The negative stereotypes helped to make the argument the Mexican people were undeserving, careless, and submissive. Before the Civil Rights Movement, pictures and movies widely spread a message of hatred and inhumanity towards Mexican Americans, portraying them as deviant and less than human beings. According to the American journalist Carrie McWilliams, in the 1920s, the Reader's Guide lists 51 articles on the Mexican problem. These narratives describe Mexican Americans as passive, poor people who live under poor social conditions. Anthropologist Professor William Madison wrote in his book, The Mexican Americans of South Texas, 1964, that, quote, Mexican Americans are simple-minded but lovable and colorful children who, because of their rustic, naivete, limited mentally and inferior backward traditional culture, choose poverty and isolation instead of assimilating into the American mainstream. These characterizations were fundamentally untrue, and Mexican Americans needed to narrate their own stories to prove them wrong. During the Civil Rights Movement, Mexican Americans went on to earn higher college degrees. They began pushing back, forming an alliance with the farm worker movement led by civil rights leaders Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. Mexican American writers like Americo Paredes wrote with his pistol in his hand, 1958, Rodolfo Anaya, Bless Mi Ultima, 1972, and Ronaldo Hinojosa, Estampas El Valle y otras obras, 1973. Tomás Rivera from Crystal City, Texas, wrote a collection of short stories titled Y no se le tragó la tierra, 1970, and the earth did not part, describing the Mexican American farm workers as families who question, reflect, and rebel against injustices committed by white employers. In an interview, Tomás Rivera said that in his writings, quote,
is a consistent and honest and authentic perspective on all these people. Also, I'm writing about, en tierra, or no se lo tragó la tierra, the earth did not part. In that book, I write about the migrant workers within the historical context of 1945, 1955. It's a period of time when there was no protection at all for the migrant workers. And the migrant workers were at the mercy of all types of exploitation. I don't find the migrant workers of that area passive at all. I find them a very heroic people.
Unquote. Other Mexican Americans joined the movement, including photographers and filmmakers who wanted to capture the essence of the Mexican American farm worker. Jesus Manuel Mena Garza, a descendant of farm workers, remembers seeing his sisters using cameras and taking pictures when he was a young boy. When he was 11 years old, his parents gave him his first camera, and he began taking pictures. For 57 years, Jesus Manuel Mena Garza has been photographing and documenting the story of Mexican American people. He believes that pictures have the power, just like words, to reveal the truth of his community and its leaders. He remembers meeting Cesar Chavez in San Jose, California, and deciding to photograph this inspiring man, who was fighting for the rights of the Mexican American farm workers. With his camera, he wanted to look beyond the color of his skin and show how strong, smart, and hard-working the Mexican American people are. Although other photojournalists documented the struggle of the farm workers, Mena believes that his photographs are unique because his pictures tell the story of a movement that inspired the imagination of others beyond the United States.
Essentially, I hope my images illustrate the conditions, the participants in the civil rights movement, specifically the Chicano civil rights movement, El Movimiento Chicano of the late 60s and 70s. They see it, they see faces, they see environments, they see context with banners and those that are involved and the intensity of the movement. I don't say it's perfect, but it's an opportunity for me to illustrate and demonstrate and share those images, and hopefully, to a certain degree, be effective.
Cesar Chavez is the founder of the United States Farm Workers Association, also known as the UFWA. He advocated for the rights and better pay rate for Mexican American farm workers. He led a movement that boycotted grapes, and he had millions stop eating grapes in support of farm workers. Farm workers marched 300 miles starting in Delano, California, and ending in Sacramento, California. Cesar Chavez led a peaceful hunger strike that lasted 24 days. He wanted the government to end the violence towards farm workers. Jesus Manuel Mera Garza, with his camera, photo-documented Cesar Chavez and the farm worker movement, a group of people with ideas who wanted the world to understand their struggle. His pictures capture a community of activists, artists, and issues affecting them. These pictures show strong, hard-working, beautiful people who have love of family, love of faith, and their struggle for social justice. Although Jesus Manuel Mena Garza did not particularly photograph Dolores Huerta, she did play an important part in organizing the farm workers, particularly women. At the first meeting that Cesar Chavez held in Delano, California, only women showed up. Dolores Huerta fought alongside Cesar Chavez, getting arrested nearly 24 times. Dolores Huerta used her words instead of violence to protest the injustices toward agricultural farm workers. Jesus Manuel Mena Garza participated in the Chicano movement and took intimate photos of Chicano leaders like Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez, who fought for the dignity of Mexican American people, and Luis Valdez, who founded El Teatro Campesino, a theater company that dramatized the issues of Mexican American farm workers. Mena Garza also photo-documented the historic high school protests of 1969 in Crystal City, Texas, where students walked out of their classrooms to express disapproval of the unequal educational conditions. During the 1970s, Mena Garza toured and photographed Teatro de la Gente, Teatro Quetzal, and Teatro Campesino. His photographs have been published in books, posters, and magazines. The hard work of photojournalist Jesus Manuel Mena Garza, writers like Tomás Rivera, activists like Cesar Chavez, is not in vain. The work of filmmakers like Gregory Nava and Edward James Olmos and Patricia Cardonos portray the richness and complexities of our Latinx communities. They have showed us that Mexican Americans are not defined by the color of our skin, or the images created by xenophobic notions of prejudice and fear. The Mexican American experience showed us that we have a beautiful cultural heritage.